a king and his soldiers defending their country with honour and sacrifice in a mighty last stand. That might sound like something out of the Middle Ages, but no. The year is 1914, it is October, and the German war machine has been barrelling through Belgium for the last 2 months, with the Belgian army putting up a fierce and valiant defensive effort. Combined with fighting across northern and eastern France between Franco-British and German forces, these events are known as the Race to the Sea, a series of continuous offensives and counteroffensives by German and Allied armies, attempting to outflank each other by enveloping the northern flank of the opposing army as they moved ever northward. The race ended on the North Sea coast of Belgium in October 1914, when the last open area that an army could pass through, known as Diksmuide, and its passage to the coast was occupied by defending Belgian troops who had dug in after falling back from their positions at Antwerp, which the German army had captured. And this is where we begin the story of the heroic last stand of the Belgians, one which halted the seemingly unstoppable German advance and allowed Brave Little Belgium, as British propaganda termed them, to hold on to one last strip of land, only about 5% of their country's size, and also birthed a national hero in King Albert I, who led his army personally into victory, sustaining Belgian national pride and morale. This is the Battle of the Yser, and the Belgians also had one particular trick up their sleeve which they used to brilliant effect. After the fall of Antwerp, located here in the north, the British and Belgian forces withdrew west, covered by other French and British forces throughout Belgium. Documents from Britain's Committee of Imperial Defence show that the Belgian 1st, 3rd and 4th Divisions stationed themselves at Ostend here. The 5th and 6th Divisions moved into Torhout and Diksmuide here, and the Antwerp garrison troops, initially stopping northwest of Ghent, retreated further before a large German force took over the city. By the 18th of October 1914, the Belgian, British and French troops in northern France and Belgium had created a solid defensive line, and it was from here that the Belgians began preparing for the inevitable large German assault across the Yser River. Now, the land surrounding the river itself formed somewhat of a natural obstacle to the German advance, and with the Belgians demolishing many bridges during their withdrawal from surrounding areas, it was going to prove arduous for the Germans. There was also a network of drainage canals that spouted out from the river, which are themselves connected to what is called reclaimed land, where the water has been drained away deliberately, and as such the water level of the entire surrounding area around the river Yser was only barely below the ground surface level, regulated by a sophisticated system of canals, sluices and pumps. The head of the drainage system lay here at Newport, where the Yser met the sea and where several other major canals converged. This entire system, as we will find out, ended up serving an extra purpose for the Belgians as well. The German offensive began in earnest on the 18th of October 1914, with the 4th Army commanded by Duke Albrecht of Württemberg, which also included cavalry and heavy artillery units, launching heavy bombardments onto Belgian forces stationed all along the Yser. Almost immediately, British warships detected the German activity and aided the Belgians in repelling many attempted advances on the first day. This British naval force was mostly made up of monitor ships, HMS Severn, Mersey and Humber, which were fairly light ships designed for use on the coast or in shallow waters, but which usually carried disproportionately large guns. HMS Marshal Ney is the best example of this, equipped with a surplus 15-inch gun battleship turret, and the Germans did actually attempt to sink the British naval presence with torpedoes, but failed, although they did manage to overrun some Allied troops southwards towards Arras, with the objective of defeating the defending Franco-Belgian armies and cutting off the British forces from Calais, seemingly ordered to advance regardless of losses on the German side. Throughout the entire period of the battle and the wider war as well, the King of Belgium, Albert I, was present. He visited the troops often, giving orders and raising the morale of his army, and he is widely regarded as a hugely important figure during this battle. Indeed, Robert Cowley, the former editor of MHQ and a historical authority on the Western Front, describes him as such, quote, "He was the only one who regularly showed up in frontline trenches. The Belgian army was, to be sure, small, but its symbolic importance was far out of proportion to its size and the tiny stretch of line it held, about 4% of the Allied side of the Western Front." Belgium and its violated neutrality provided the Allies with the ready-made patina of morality the war otherwise lacked, and Albert, the man who chose against all odds to resist the Hun, approached crusaderhood as nearly as anyone. He became, despite himself, the world's last warrior king. A statue of the king now stands elevated near the Yser, watching over the former battlefield. After repeated attacks over the next 3 days, on the 21st of October 1914, the Germans managed to establish a beachhead on the west bank of the Yser at Tervatay, despite a counterattack by the French 42nd Division, which then withdrew to reinforce the Belgians, who had retreated to the Diksmuide-Newport Railway by the 24th of October. By this point, there was an incredible amount of pressure on the stretched Belgian lines, with French Navy troops at Diksmuide itself, which formed a crucial bridgehead to the eastern bank of the Yser, also suffering 50% casualties or losses, with Belgian resistance weakening and the king himself, who was serving on the front lines, fearing a German breakthrough in the direction of Dunkirk and Calais, made a drastic decision, and those canals and drainage systems I mentioned earlier come into play. The Belgians decided to inundate the Yser River and flood the surrounding area. During the nights of the 26th to the 30th of October, Belgian engineers made their way to the sluice gates at Newport and opened them during high tides. The effect this had was that it steadily raised the water level until an impassable flooded area was created roughly a mile wide, stretching as far south as Diksmuide, 12 miles away. This was a masterstroke that allowed the Allied powers to retain a front line in Belgium, aptly called the Yser Front, and although the Germans launched another attack on the 30th of October that breached the Belgian second line and reached some way further, French and Belgian counterattacks retook these areas, and when the Germans realised that the continuing flooding was going to end up cutting off the land behind them, which would leave them stranded, they withdrew the following night, the 30th to the 31st of October 1914. And so the Battle of the Yser was an Allied victory. It was a Belgian victory, with this incredible event of the flooding of the river itself, a crucial action, a masterstroke action, as I said, that allowed the Allies to hold on to a tiny sliver of Belgium, and is perfectly represented in the Sabaton song, if you haven't listened to it, called Race to the Sea, and that's actually the inspiration for this video. Sabaton, one of those amazing bands that focuses their songs on historical events. Fighting continued along the Belgian front lines throughout the duration of the Great War, including the many battles at Ypres and of course at Passchendaele. Ultimately though, the Battle of the Yser allowed the Allies to cling on to that last crucial corner of Belgium, ending the race to the sea and the period of open warfare in northern France and Belgium, with battle lines and trench warfare setting in. The Yser front was largely static for the duration of the war, but it is definitely a story worth telling, with of course the king himself leading his troops into an extraordinary last stand with the drastic measure of inundating the river. So let me know your thoughts on this. Had you heard of this last stand, the flooding of the river in 1914? Let me know your thoughts. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and give me any suggestions on how I can improve in the future, editing style or anything like that, or any suggestions for topics you'd like me to cover in the future as well. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.